Hi, everyone. Dr. Jill Hubbard here, along with
Jim Burns, and it's great to be with you.
Yes, and we are some of your New Life Radio co-hosts, and we are doing New Life Video today to help all of you out. So, Jim, you've written the book, Doing Life with Your Adult Kids, and I find that being a parent of younger adult kids, I have run into the issue, along with other people that I talk to, about when is it time to actually keep your mouth shut, right?
Right.
Because your subtitle is...
keep your mouth shut, welcome that out.
Right, exactly.
And that's hard to do because sometimes,
Yeah, that is hard to do. So I know I have some thoughts on it, but I'm also thinking for you at different stages.
Well, I think it's a process, and it is stages, because when your kids say they're adults, they say they're adults at 18, at least, and you're like, wait, I'm still paying for your cell phone, I'm still doing all this stuff, we're paying for your college, actually. You're living in our house, you're eating the food. I think we can't totally keep our mouth shut at that point. It's a stage. But we do have to understand something, that when we don't keep our mouth shut and we give unsolicited advice, that they do take it as criticism.
They do.
And that's natural. And what
even though they're adults.
Yeah, and what they're hearing is, you don't trust me to be an adult. And that sort of makes sense sometimes, for a good reason.
It's true. Yeah.
Right. So I think it's a stage. I don't think we can get too hard on ourselves. But as time goes on, I think it's important, as they do get older, that we actually move the relationship from parent-child to more of an adult-to-an-adult relationship. So, I love and respect you. I'm not going to give you a lot of advice on things because you're an adult, right?
Right.
That'd be awkward. That'd be weird, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same with your own children. They're still your children, and you've been giving advice for, 2 decades, but now it's time, as they get older, to just keep it shut. So again, 18 to those 20, early 20-something, we call those the emerging adult years.
Oh, yeah.
That's the harder one, because you're giving advice, you're giving input, you're biting your tongue, doing both. And then as they get older, I find it's just better to say, can I ask permission to talk into this?
Right,
and I do that with my
that.
kids who are now in their 30s.
Yeah.
And, I've had both. I've had, absolutely, Dad, one time my daughter Christy said, "Not now, Dad." And I was like, wait, people pay me to give advice.
Exactly. That is funny. So I know I always say that I have one kid that's launched, so mid moving into late 20s, and I have my youngest who just turned 22. Right. And those emerging adult years, you are so right. I think like at 22, I remember with my daughter, I started to see some light, and there was definitely a major shift, right? But when they're not launched, you're there with them, right? And you are giving them input. And while it changes through the teen years, right, and you're kind of letting out the rope a little more, I think, I know for me it was kind of a surprise awareness of, I'm hitting up against their boundaries, right? Versus them hitting up against mine. Yeah. I'm hitting up against theirs.
Well, that's why it's good to have a conversation about expectations, never in the heat of the battle. I remember Rebecca was moving back after college, and she was only going to be there for 2 months, which lasted 2.5 years while she went to grad school. And I had this meeting with her, with Kathy, and we said, hey, here's a couple of expectations. And they were pretty simple. Text us at 11 if you're not in, because we're going to be up, and I know you're an adult and you've been in college. So, but let us know. And also, we'd love to have dinner with you, maybe once or twice a week. And here's a toilet brush. You're in charge of that toilet, and you're going to clean that thing once a week. Is that a deal? And then I said, off the cuff, do you have any expectations for us? And she actually had expectations.
That's a good one.
So the point was, I didn't expect her to have any expectations. I'm just happy to be with you guys, right? No, she had expectations. And some of them were directed at me. She said, Dad, my friends love you, but you just come and sit in the middle of the couch when we're all here, and you just kind of join in. And you know what? I want to invite you in. And I went, Rebecca, I'm so glad you told me that. I had no idea. Right. I was just being their youth pastor, right? And so in my mind, that's cool. No. And that was a really helpful thing for me to do. Right. But I think we ask permission sometimes.
Well, and I had to learn things a little bit more the hard way I guess, by, like I said, hitting up against boundaries. So we kind of have this running joke in our family now that my daughter calls me the passive-aggressive book giver, that I give books to people about issues they never knew that they had, right? And I'm thinking, okay, well, you all know I work for New Life, and we have all these great books, and here's the latest one that we have this year. So at Christmas, everybody gets a book, right? And so my nieces and nephew and my kids, now it's this joke, right? Yeah. And so my daughter has said, now, Mom, you have to run by me which book you're going to give to my boyfriend, right?
So true. Yeah.
Because I think I gave him like the one on character, 100 Days to Character or something. She's like, okay, Mom, we're nixing this right here.
But that's, they look at it differently. I remember one Easter, a boyfriend, around the table for everybody, I had a thing on the resurrection of Jesus. And I thought it was a really cool little paragraph. And my daughter said to me, about her boyfriend, he wanted to know if that was directed to him because he was still kind of searching in his faith.
Oh, yeah.
It hadn't even dawned on me.
It wasn't a strategic plan.
No, I wasn't being passive-aggressive. And later I kind of went, that was a really good idea.
And just for the record, I'm not passive-aggressive. Right. I'm just assertive.
Yeah. Well, what's fascinating, what we take as being assertive or as generous with our words and with our advice, they take in a different manner. And that's what we have to be. We have to get inside of their own head.
Right. I remember when my daughter was young, kind of junior high age, and her brother is almost 5 years younger. And so he and we can get really silly together. Well, at a stage of life when my daughter is taking herself way too serious, right, to be joking around, right, isn't a good match. And you have to really remember the context of where they're at in life.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Right? The emerging adults or the 20-something, I find they're still insecure about who they are as adults.
Well, I think you're saying a good thing. There's stages to parenting. So let's take the 2 to 10. You are in control. Because you're micromanaging to the best place. But then you have to move to coaching, which is, I call it 13 to 15, maybe even younger, 10 to 15. You're coaching. Coaches are still in charge, but they've got to begin to make some decisions on their own because the bottom line is they have to become responsible adults. Then you go into consulting, and consulting is, say, 15 to those early 20s. Most of their decisions should be made by them.
Yes.
And if we don't do that and we continue to control, for us control freaks that want to keep doing that, we're not launching them well.
No.
From consulting, then we go to care, where now the care is much more, we're turning our parenting job into being their mentor. And it's not a friend, but it is more like a friend when they're adults, because it's an adult-to-adult relationship. All the others were adult to still child. And I think that's important for us to remember.
Right. And I think I talk to so many parents where we really have to keep our anxiety out of it. Yeah. And as much as we all know this, right, we don't want to put on our adult children their need to perform to validate who we are, right? Yeah. Meaning, asking them to perform so we look good. And sometimes parents don't even realize they're doing that. I have so many parents say, am I a bad parent because my child's doing X, Y, and Z? And it's like, no, they're launching. They're differentiating.
No, exactly. And sometimes during that launch period, really good parents have kids who make poor choices. And, I know that we sometimes blame ourselves, but we really can't blame ourselves. Our kids are going to make choices on their own. Right. And that's important. Yeah.
Which is a whole nother topic, right?
Exactly.
Of when they veer from what we think is right. Yeah. So I think, though, and I've heard this on the radio a lot too. We've had these parents that call in, and they still feel like they have the right to really tell their adult kids, where it's at. No. And I think that's a really important distinction to make. And I love what you said about asking for permission, right, to speak into their lives. It shows respect, right?
Yeah, you're exactly right.
And that you're elevating them.
Our job is to shower them with respect. And yet it's hard when they're not being respectful either, and that does happen. Probably a good place for us to land, time-wise. Hey, we're part of the New Life ministries movement, and we would love for you to, if you have any need, any issue, do not hesitate to call 1-800-NEW-LIFE, and there's someone who's online who can help you in whatever it might be. You might want to come to one of our events. You definitely want to hopefully listen to us on the radio. Lots of great resources. Don't miss out on that. And we'll get to have another conversation here real soon.